Welcome back to my channel. In this video, I'm going to show you how I prepare my homegrown onions, my year's worth of onions that I grew this year, for long-term storage. But before we get into it, I would like for you to go ahead and click that like button, or you can wait until you feel ready, until you feel like you really like the video. But click that like button. That's a free way that you can support the channel. It helps this video get out to more gardeners, so I would greatly appreciate it. And then also, if you're looking for more gardening content, I'm growing in North Texas, Zone 8A, so definitely if you live in my area, but of course, I hope to have gardeners watching this channel from all over the world, because there are definitely tips and strategies that you can apply to your garden. So if you are interested in more gardening content, then go ahead and subscribe to the channel and click the notification bell to be notified every time I upload a video. All right, so now let's get into it. Okay, so I grew all of these onions from seed starting back in November of 2021. If you are interested in seeing that entire process, I have a playlist on my channel, and I'll link that playlist up here called, Growing Onions from Seed. And you can watch all of those videos from when I started the seeds, when I transplanted them outdoors, an update on how they were doing, and then when I harvested them. So I have 4 videos there already on that entire process. Now I want to show you guys how I get them ready so that they actually last a year, right? There's no point in growing a year's worth of something if it's not going to last a year. So all of these onions here, the first thing I did after I harvested them, I just let them sit out in the sun for a day or two just to kind of start that drying process. I let them sit on my patio. Once I was done with that, then I took them into my garage. I don't have a covered porch or anything to let them cure, so I had to take them into the garage. You should always cure your onions in a covered place out of direct sun, but it's great if it can be, warm, and you want to make sure there's some sort of air circulation. So if there isn't, if you feel like the place is really stuffy, then you want to put a fan on them. My garage is perfectly fine. We're always going in and out of it, so I just put them on a couple of trays or a couple of racks that I have in the garage that have holes in them, in the bottom of them. A wire rack and then another rack that was in there. So I laid them there, and they actually stayed on those racks for about 3 weeks. You want to leave them curing until the green of the onion is completely dry. Now you want to leave the green of the onion on there, or at least most of it. You can trim some of it off to use for green onions, but you want to leave most of it because all of that moisture and flavor kind of ends up inside the bulb of the onion. So your onions will have a better flavor if you don't trim off all the greens before you cure. So you leave the leaves and everything on the onion, and then you let them cure. Like I said, mine took about 3 weeks. I probably could have brought them in at about 2 weeks because it was so warm in there. But I left them out for 3 weeks just to make sure that they were cured. And once they're cured, like when you touch the neck of the onion, it should feel dry. It shouldn't feel really thick and hard. It should feel pretty dry. And so now that that's done, it's time to get these guys ready for long term. So to get them ready for long term, you can see them laying here. They look kind of a mess. So what I do is just trim off the leaves. You leave, maybe about 1 centimeter or so on them, but that's it. You trim that off. You dust off any dirt. If there is an outer layer that looks really bad, you might be able to peel off one of them, but you want to keep an outer layer. You don't want to peel the onion so that all of the dry outer layers are gone, because that helps keep the onion preserved and keeps the onion intact. So dust off as much dirt as you can, and also you want to trim the roots of the onion. And so once you've done that, your onion is ready to be stored. So you can watch me doing that with all of these. It takes a little while to get them all done. Okay, so now that they're done, where I store mine, I don't have a root cellar or anything like that in my house here in Texas. That's not really a thing, I don't think, that most people have here. I could be wrong, but I definitely don't have one. So I store mine in the refrigerator. Last season, I grew enough onions that lasted me, last year I grew enough onions that lasted me about 6 months, and I just stored them in the crisper drawer in the refrigerator, and they were good until I was done with them. Until I used all the onions, none of them went bad, none of them sprouted, they did perfectly fine. The key is with onions, unlike with garlic, onions like a much cooler temperature. Room temperature, they're fine for a few weeks, but they'll probably start sprouting or going bad after a while at room temperature. They're not gonna last 6 months or a year at room temperature. Maybe they'll last a month, but they're not gonna last much longer than that. So not room temperature, you wanna keep them cool and around 50 degrees or cooler. So of course the only place in my house that is that cool is the refrigerator. So I store them in the crisper drawer. I just devote one of the drawers to the onions, and the rest of them that don't fit, last season I could fit them all in there. This season I could not because I had much more onions. The rest of them that don't fit, I am chopping those up and storing them in the freezer. And that's it. So I'll show you guys. So here is my crisper drawer full of onions. This is really heavy. And so I'll keep all of these in the refrigerator. That way I have onions available for all of the fresh uses that I have them for, even though the vast majority of my onions get used in cooking. But I still like to have them here. And then the ones that I'm chopping and freezing, those are the ones that I'll use in cooking as well. So I'll use those, I'll use these, depends on how I'm feeling that day, right? And it's kind of nice to have some chopped up and frozen too, because when you're cooking and you're trying to get something done quickly, it's kind of nice to not have to stop and chop up an onion. So I love having some that are already chopped and in the freezer. And if I notice, because last year my onions only lasted me 6 months because I ran out, so if I notice anything happening with these that are in the refrigerator, if some of them, if it looks like they may not make it the whole time, then I'll just take them out, chop them up, and put them in the freezer. So that's always gonna be an option so that these onions do not go bad until they've been used. But the amount I have, those plus all of the ones I still have on my kitchen table that I'm still working on chopping. I haven't chopped them all up yet because it takes me a little bit of time. I'm kind of slow with the knife. But that's it. That's my process for getting my onions ready for long-term storage so that they stay fresh, so that I can use them in all the ways that I need to use onions this year before the next crop is ready to go. Thank you for sticking around to the end of this video. I hope that you found this content helpful. I hope that you're considering growing some onions. Y'all, growing onions has probably been the most fun thing that I've done this season. It's just something about taking that tiny, tiny black seed and it turning into like onions. It's kind of just a really amazing thing to see. And so I hope that you guys will consider doing it, growing yourself a year's worth of onions or even just a few months worth of onions, and have that as something that you could take off your grocery list. So of course, if you enjoyed the video, please go ahead and give it a like. That, like I mentioned before, helps this video get out to more gardeners, which I would greatly appreciate. And then of course you can subscribe to the channel for more gardening content from me and click that notification bell so that you are notified every time I upload a video. Thanks again, and until we meet again, have a great one. Bye.